Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Sweet Spot. We are live on location here in Arlington, Texas at the Hospitality and Hotels Digital Transformation Summit 2026. Have some incredible conversation, panels, and education on tap talking about digital transformation that literally feels like it changes every single day in our industry. And we've got an expert here, Dr. Cecil Hopper, AVP of Revenue Optimization and Feasibility from Hyatt. Dr. Cecil, thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting to be here. The event technically hasn't started yet, but there's an energy. You can see the vendors here. You can see some of the amazing panel and agenda and programming that this event is put together. What are you looking to get out of an event like this when it comes to your role and your responsibilities?
I like speaking to all the new vendors. Yeah. Every show, there's more technology. There's different people with different spins on on service automation and artificial intelligence. So I like gathering knowledge from all these folks that are knee deep in it, hearing what the customers have to say and how guests are reacting to it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the research that you've been talking to me about is really talking about where everyone is. This is a large spectrum right now. I don't know if we've been in a place like this in hospitality where there's some people that are just beginning kind of their hospitality tech AI journey, and then other people that are already in implementation and kind of analyzing their results and saying, did this work? What are the lessons that we learned? You're going to be doing an opening keynote on RACE awareness, which is navigating fear, trust, and transformation in hospitality. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that plays into kind of that spectrum that I was talking about there.
Yeah, so I started my research early on because there's this euphoria around service automation, particularly AI, which isn't universally felt. So that was my thesis. And so I did a bit of research and speaking to frontline workers and proved that out through data to say that, it's about 30% of frontline workers have what we call RACE awareness. That means where they actively disengage when they hear that ownership or leadership is looking for artificial intelligence into the workplace, and it's not just fear of job replacement. What I found is that the implementation side shows some opportunity. I'm sure you've heard from a number of vendors. It's we're implementing technology to make things more efficient so we can spend more time connecting with guests.
Right.
That sounds fabulous, but in very rare circumstances is that actually happening.
Yeah. And where do you think the failure is happening? I know you mentioned implementation. Do you think it's a communication of what this is supposed to be doing? Do you think it's the misunderstanding of the frontline workers of like how this is actually supposed to improve their job or even responsibilities?
Well, what my research found is that it's kind of a combination of everything. Most notably, lack of involvement of the frontline workers in the design of the product implementation. So taking into account what's actually happening between the guest and colleagues on the front line into the implementation instead of assuming what we think is happening between those folks.
That's so fascinating because I feel like we just went through this we almost had to do this reset through the pandemic where there were actually management and operations people doing these jobs, right? So you would almost think that they'd have a better understanding. Do you think that maybe guest expectations and their kind of what they expect as far as a technology standpoint, is that factoring at all into this?
Oh, 100%. When you talk to frontline workers, and this is especially true in service automation, the expectations of guests change the moment you introduce technology into that equation. So for instance, if a piece of technology has been introduced to gather information or take orders, there is an expectation from guests that the service is going to be perfect as far as the delivery of what has been asked, and that the speed is going to be mind-boggling. Right. And we both know that on the back ends, lots of times we still have manual processes that are just being supplemented by the digital devices. So we're not necessarily faster because we still got a bottleneck back there. And we might not be as accurate because sometimes they're not fully integrated. So there's a service delivery gap. And what's really fascinating is that some of this RACE awareness is occurring because when customers are frustrated, they take the frustration about that technology out on the frontline workers, right? So now they're becoming tech support for a piece of technology that oftentimes they weren't too jazzed about in the first place.
That makes so much sense. They are the ones having that interaction and sometimes are really the face of that technology if it fails or isn't necessarily living up to its height.
Right.
You work with young hospitality professionals. We're going to talk about that in a second. What do you think the expectation is for this younger generation coming into hospitality? You think they're surprised by the lack of technology that's already implemented in our industry? And do you think that it kind of falls on our industries to kind of catch up, so to speak? And so these students come in and they feel like, oh, this is a tech savvy industry, which we're typically not known for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I take a different spin on it. So yes on that. I think it's more important that as the old guard, we're taking the necessary steps to educate those that are inclined to use digital devices on what traditional hospitality is, what's okay and what's not okay. So a great example is, I was grabbing my coffee at the airport this morning, and I've watched this. I live in Tucson, it's a very small airport, and I've watched this one coffee place transform over the past 6 months. And now instead of 3 cashiers, they have 3 kiosks and 1 person behind to help.
Yeah.
So going back to this thesis of, more efficient ordering, more time to engage. Well, there was a cashier behind, but he was on his phone the whole time and didn't say a word to anybody, which was probably fine with him. And it was probably fine with the, 10 or 15 people that I saw go through and get their coffee. But what he wasn't doing was engaging with anybody, any memorable moments. I guarantee you, if given 4 other selections for coffees in that airport, there's going to be no loyalty to that particular facility. And that's not that individual's fault. Nobody had coached him on he needed to go above and beyond to engage people, because they certainly weren't going to do that on their own.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what you talked about at the top of this episode, of talking about it's not a replacement. It should be a supplement and hopefully add to that experience to make it more memorable in the end.
Right.
Talk to us about your work, though, with young hospitality professionals, because it was very, very cool to hear.
Yeah, dude. So my passion project right now is Tucson Hospitality Academy. So that's something I started right when I finished my doctorate at USC. And so here's the idea, is that, I got into hospitality by way of a vocational school. I had no idea what this industry was. I come from a very humble background. If you would have asked me when I was 15, I would have thought that being a front office manager was a fabulous career, and it still is.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know is the world out there that hospitality, can create for somebody, that, you can go, from being a bellman when you're 15 to being, a vice president in development, and likely only step into hotels as a guest. And, you're actually selling the brands for people. So, I thought, how do I make a difference, right? And the long-tailed story here is that I started applying to be adjunct professor at a couple universities, and I thought, well, in order to make an impact, 2 things need to happen. Either kids would need to go take those classes, especially because I was teaching them, and that would require a lot of ego. That's probably not realistic, right? The second one is that they would need to have a better experience in my class than in anybody else's class. And as a first-time teacher, well, that's probably not true either. So the real path to making a difference would be to finding kids who didn't even know about hospitality, who weren't going to go to a hospitality school, and giving them that opportunity. So I self-funded this school. I take about 20 kids per semester. And the idea is that I'm getting them in front of leaders. So your accounting class is taught by somebody who's working in accounting. Your finance class is taught by somebody who's working in finance. And the first semester is the most fun, because that's where they're going through these classes. And at the end of the semester, we ask them to pick a discipline that they think that they're interested in. So let's say that is going to be sales. And then they'll get a sales mentor. And that person is going to guide them through their 2-year process. We're going to get them into a hotel. We're going to get them jobs. They might find out that they don't want to work in sales, but that's cool too. Because the idea is that we're trying things on. We're trying to create this, this new wave of individuals who wouldn't otherwise know that there's a big career out there.
And better that happen early on with a conversation, or even getting the firsthand experience from someone, than maybe being 6 months or a year into a job that you didn't like, or going down a route that you didn't like, and finding that out down the line.
Yeah, that's right.
That's very, very cool to hear. Wish you all the best with that. Because we need more hospitality professionals, younger hospitality professionals, that know that it's more than just a summer job that you fall into and create a career with. There's so many aspects to it, so many transferable skills, and best industry in the world. So,
well, if anybody's interested in being a professor, being a mentor, it's TucsonHospitalityAcademy.com. It's completely self-funded. The kids aren't paying anything to be in the class. Most of the kids come from the foster system in Southern Arizona, so we can use all the help that we can get.
Love to hear it. Very cool. Keep an eye on that. One of the things we like to do here is try to look into a crystal ball and kind of predict the future. You get a lot of people jazzed up about technology and having these conversations about what's next. With all the research and background that you have, where would you predict kind of the next couple of years? What's the next big thing on the edge for AI and hospitality?
And that's such a crazy question.
You can go anywhere with it.
Well, because I've tried specifically to stay away from trying to predict the future because I think that's what so many people do. But since you asked, the gap that I see emerging is in AI optimization. So what the research shows right now, a little giveaway for the keynote in a couple days, the research shows right now is that, most AI installations are failing to achieve a positive return on investment. And this could be because we know that, early adoption is expensive and, you're the first one out. So, you're not yet refined. But that's precisely why my prediction is AI adoption, an entire field of individuals that will work, between the supplier side and the hotel side to say, okay, we've got this great product. We've got this great hotel or resort or restaurant. How are we going to put them together, and how are we going to stick with it past implementation to make sure that it works for the particular deployment that hospitality is looking for?
It's such an interesting space right now because, like I said, you also have people that have implemented things and they're getting FOMO. They're feeling like, hey, this brand just announced this partnership, this integration, this new strategy. We got to get on it, and then maybe that causes you to rush in a little bit and not see the results that you're looking for there.
Yeah.
So. Well, thank you so much. We're excited about your panel. We're excited about the insights that you're going to glean from this show. Appreciate all the work you're doing, and thank you for stopping by here on The Sweet Spot.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right.